Hello, I'm Andy Graves with Crochet 123 magazine. Today I am demonstrating the techniques you'll need to make the beginner broomstick lace scarf in issue 11. We start with the loop pass.
For the loop pass in broomstick lace, you're going to need a pin. In this case, I am using a 19mm knitting needle as my pin to place the loops on. The first loop in your loop pass, you've ended your previous row and you have a loop on your hook. You're going to extend that loop on your hook and place it over the point of your knitting needle or whatever you chose to use for a pen. Then you're just going to give a gentle tug to the working yarn. You don't want this loop to be super tight. You want it to be loose enough that it slides around on the pen, but it doesn't get tangled with the other loops. Now, your first stitch that you work on the loop pass, the first loop, second loop that you're going to pull up. The first loop comes from your working loop that was on your hook. The next loop is actually going to come up through this stitch here. Now, there's two loops at the top of each stitch, and you can work broomstick lace going under both loops. But in our case, for our pattern, we go under the back loop. So we go under the back loop, and this is a bit like walking and chewing gum at the same time. It feels a little awkward at first, but you yarn over, pull up the loop, bring it to the end of your knitting needle, and snuggle it down. Now we're going to go on to our next one. And after a while, this gets a little bit more comfortable to do. I'm just going really slow so you can see it. And you're going to continue on in that way across your row, working into the back loop. Alright, now that we've filled our pin with our loops, and you can see I can move them around. They're not super tight, and they're not sitting on top of each other. Now, I always count my loops before I take them off to work them. So, there's 5, 10, 15, 20. So I've got all my loops that match all my stitches. Didn't miss any stitches this time. Now, to work the first stitch that you're going to work when you're taking your loops off is called a locking chain stitch. And this is a stitch that I always tend to work while the pin's still in with the loops. Now, I slide my first group of loops because I'm working my loops off in groups of 5. So I'm going to slide the first 5 down here onto the point of my knitting needle. Then I slide my hook in under the legs of the first 5 loops. I twist that so that it locks them into place. I bring my working yarn up along behind, wrap it around, bring it through, and make a chain stitch. And that's my locking chain. Now, from this point forward, you could continue to work stitches into your groups of loops while they're still in the pin. My preference is to take them off. But first I'm going to show you how you would work them if you work them on. Now I like to get down here on the taper because of course it's easier to get into the loops on the taper. Slip under all the loops, come around, and make a single crochet stitch. Again, you're going through all the loops, come around, make a single crochet stitch. We're going to do that 3 more times. And once we've completed all 5, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, one more. We've got our 5 crochet stitches. Now, you could slide your next section of 5 loops down here onto the taper. I don't like this. I don't like working with this in my hand, especially for something that's this narrow. What I prefer to do is a method that I learned where we slide all our loops off, take our pin out and lay it out of the way. Now, we've got our loops here. Now yes, these loops have some movement to them, but as you can see, if I pinch between my finger and my thumb and hold underneath here, I can get 5 loops very nicely, cleanly. I can see they're the 5 in a row. They're all sitting neatly on my hook. Then I grab my working yarn, pull it through, make my single crochet stitch. This is just a little less bulky to work with. It's a little easier. It's kind of scary the first time you slide all those loops off. You're just sure they're all going to run away, but really they're not. And if they do, hey, you know how to make more loops, so you're okay. And what I'm doing is I'm doing 5 single crochet stitches into a group of 5 loops. And you can see how it begins to create these little eyelets in your work. Got 3, 4, and 5. And we're going to continue this way all the way to our end of our groups of loops. And this is our last 5 group. Going to do our 5 single crochets. And if you need to, you can manipulate the loops with your thumb and forefinger to open that up more so it's easier to find where you need to go in. Now that we've worked these, I pull up that loop just to get it out of the way. And I kind of handle this a little bit. I give a tug to the top of each group of eyelets. And there you see, we've got our first broomstick lace row. And it's a lovely group of eyelets that work out very nicely for our scarf.